Hello and welcome to ACT Prep. I'm your English teacher, Miss Abear. Yesterday we looked at sentence fragments and run-on sentences. Today we are looking at modifiers. And so again, I want to remind you that the conventions of standard English items account for more than 50% of your ACT English test. And so these items that fall under conventions of standard English are going to be the most important ones for you to study. The last time that we were together, I also gave you some free resources that you can use to help get your conventions of standard English to a place that will meet your needs and will get you the highest score possible on the ACT English portion. All right, so remember under sentence structure, which falls under conventions of standard English, there are 5 learning targets. Run-on sentences, sentence fragments, both of those we looked at last time we were together. Also dangling and squinting modifiers, misplaced modifiers, both of those we're going to look at today. And then the other skill under sentence structure is subordination, coordination, and parallelism. And you can see highlighted or boldened what we will be studying specifically today. So what is a modifier? Modifiers are words, phrases, or clauses that describe other words and phrases. Typically, modifiers are adjectives and adverbs, but they can also be prepositional phrases or even entire clauses. Ideally, a modifier appears next to the word or phrase that they describe, either directly before it or directly after it. However, when a modifier is separated from the word it describes, it can become unclear which word it is supposed to modify. In grammar, that is a misplaced modifier. So, what is a dangling or squinting modifier? A dangling modifier has nothing to modify. It's just out there on its own. It's an error caused by failing to use the word that the modifier is meant to be modifying. It can be fixed by either removing the modifier altogether or adding the necessary information that connects the modifier to its intended target. You may not hear the word squinting modifier as often as you will hear dangling modifier or just modifier as a whole, but a squinting modifier is a type of misplaced modifier. It makes the meaning of a sentence ambiguous because it is unclear whether it modifies the text before it or after it. It can usually be fixed by moving it closer to the word or phrase it is intended to modify. So let's look at some examples from our ACT test. There aren't too many squinting or dangling modifiers. You see there are only 2 dangling or squinting modifiers. So question number 35 on your ACT English test does include an item that includes a dangling or squinting modifier. Let's look at it. When she was commissioned by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority of New York City to perform a specific artwork, whew, that was a mouthful, wasn't it? Visually representing her dual identity was a means sought by Shin as an American and a Korean. So you see the underlined portion is meant to modify something, but can you tell what it's modifying? It's very difficult to tell, isn't it? So the information kind of is like I said, unclear. So it uses the words or the phrase by Shin. So let's rewrite this whole underlined portion and replace it with some of the ideas from ACT. So it could read, when she was commissioned by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority of New York City to perform a site-specific artwork, sought by Shin was a means of visually representing her dual identity as an American and a Korean. What was sought by Shin? Can you tell? I can't either using that representation. So let's look at C. When she was commissioned by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority of New York City to perform a site-specific artwork, a means of visually representing her dual identity was sought by Shin as an American and a Korean. That too is unclear. So now let's look at the best answer according to ACT. when she was commissioned by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority of New York City to perform a site-specific artwork, Shin sought a means of visually representing her dual identity as an American and as a Korean. You see that? So she's talking about here her dual identity, and it is immediately followed by as an American and a Korean. And so that dual identity is modifying, or I'm sorry, American and a Korean is modifying the dual identity. It's giving you more information about what that dual identity looks like. Lots of people have dual identities. You may represent, I represent as both a female and a teacher. I represent, I was raised in one area of the state of Mississippi, and I've lived in another area for the majority of my life. So that would be dual identity. So if I wanted to be more specific about my dual identity, I would talk about being a resident of Brandon, but I grew up in Jackson. And so that helps understand who I am as a person, and that's what this sentence aims to do. All right? Do you follow that and you understand why that modifier needed to be changed or moved around in order to make that sentence a more complete sentence and one that expresses what exactly is being modified? All right, let's look at the next one. Able to grow as tall as a 26-story building and as wide as a city street, Earth has the largest living things, which are giant sequoia trees. Y'all, that sounds like Earth, that Earth is able to grow as tall as a 26-story building. That's not what they're trying to say, are they? So we need to move the giant sequoia trees, which are the ones that are able to grow, closer to the part that's able to grow. And if you look at answer choice J, it puts giant sequoia trees right after the part of the sentence that is meant to describe those giant sequoia trees. So let's take all of this part out. Able to grow as tall as a 26-story building and as wide as a city street, giant sequoia trees are the largest living things on Earth. So this entire part of the sentence is describing the giant sequoia trees. And so that's how we make sure that those dangling and squinting modifiers are labeled properly and that we find the best answer on this ACT test. All right? Do we understand dangling and squinting modifiers? Because now we need to go to misplaced modifiers. And there's only one item there, guys. Okay, are we ready? A misplaced modifier is closely related to the dangling modifier. The main difference is whether the word or phrase or clause they're supposed to describe is actually in the sentence. A dangling modifier describes a word, phrase, or a clause that is not included in the sentence. A misplaced modifier describes a word, phrase, or clause that is in the sentence but in the wrong place. So let's look at item number 39 because that is the one that includes a misplaced modifier according to ACT. So let's look at that sentence. In 2008, she contacted ceramicists in the South Korean city of Incheon for celadon shards and arranged to be shipped to Queens. The best placement for the underlined portion would be, so we need to look at this underlined short for celadon shards. So my question was, the question according to ACT is, where should that underlined portion be placed best? So she contacted ceramicists in the South Korean city of Incheon and arranged what to be shipped to Queens? Because that was my first question. What did she arrange to be shipped? She arranged these shards to be shipped, right? So if we put them after the word arranged, that will make the most logical sentence, and you can understand what was being arranged to be shipped to Queens. So this would be moved here. Okay, so in 2008, she contacted ceramicists in the South Korean city of Incheon and arranged for celadon shards to be shipped to Queens. Do you see how we moved that underlined portion after the word arranged? I did that wrong. Yeah, but and would be moved there. So that's right. And arranged So and arranged, both are moved here. Does that make sense? I know I'm putting lots of things all over the place, but you can see if you're reading the sentence and you're asking yourself what was arranged to be shipped, and if you have to ask yourself in the sentence, then it's probably a misplaced modifier if you are asking yourself those questions. And it's really important that you do ask yourself those questions. So that is all that I have for modifiers. Until next time, happy learning.